Hello, 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 and welcome to the Divine Motions Podcast. I am your host, I'm Onyinka, and today I just wanted to do a fun episode and just talk about things that I wish I had known um, before I got pregnant or with my first pregnancy, and just things that I wish people had told me about being pregnant that I had no idea about. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing that I wish somebody would have told me um, before I got pregnant is that no two pregnancies are going to be alike. And that goes from person to person. So no two people are going to have the same pregnancy experience. And that goes even for a mom. So the same mom can have the same sex baby two, three, four different times and have two, three, four different experiences. So, with that means that you should take advice pretty much with a grain of salt. So you should always filter it through your intuition before you just hop on any bandwagon that goes from your providers to something that you read on the internet. You always need to ask questions, and you always need to tap into your personal intuition as you're making decisions for you, your body, and your baby. The second thing is that, or the second thing that I wish somebody would have told me is that pregnancy is not necessarily a medical emergency. So just because you're pregnant, that doesn't mean that you are physically disabled. That doesn't mean that you need to stop and cease all physical activity. That doesn't mean that you need to act like you are now experiencing some type of physical handicap or anything like that. Pregnancy is a very natural occurrence. And so with that, the more that you treat yourself as if you are disabled or pregnancy is a debilitating situation, the more it's going to be debilitating to you. So the less that you are active and the less that you move around, the more that you are going to start to atrophy, the weaker you're going to get. So then it's going to get harder the further along you get. Whereas if in the beginning you stay about as active as you were prior to pregnancy, which everybody always has a dip during the first trimester because of morning sickness, added fatigue, and especially if it's your first pregnancy, that's even harder to deal with. But once you start to get that second trimester energy going, it's a good idea to try to get back to some of the activities that you were doing before you were pregnant. So this isn't me telling you or anybody, I definitely would never recommend that anybody begin any new exercises or new workout routines or new activities while they're pregnant, but still doing the same thing that you were doing while you were not pregnant. So if you always loved going to the gym every Monday and Wednesday, still go to the gym every Monday and Wednesday when you're pregnant. Just make the proper modifications that you need to make, of course. But yeah, being pregnant is not a physical disability. Now, there are some pregnancy conditions that will limit the amount of physical activity that you can do, but you'll know when that comes along, your provider, and you will have that conversation. And likely they still won't want you to just be completely inactive. Even if you're bed rest, they still want you to be doing something that stimulates your mind if you can. Because the more active you are mentally, physically, spiritually, the better outcome your birth is going to be. The third thing I wish somebody had told me before I got pregnant or while I was pregnant is that you do not have to give birth in the hospital, and giving birth in the hospital is not always the most economic alternative, even if you have insurance. So a lot of people think that because they have insurance, and their doctors are the only ones who are in network, that is the only option that they have for birth. However, there are lots of licensed practicing midwives, certified CPMs is what they're called. And they are licensed midwives that can deal with home births, and they are perfectly safe for normal low risk births. And in fact, it wasn't until recently, like within the past 50, 60 years, that births were looked at as something that was always done in the hospital. Traditionally, births were had at home. And with the rate of maternal death in America, especially among Black women, the hospital is not even always the safest place for you to deliver. So it is just very important for you to look at all of your options in your area, and see what is open to you. So you can have, obviously, everybody knows about a hospital birth, but there are also birthing centers, which usually are run by midwives, or they might have a doctor that runs the entire staff, that heads the thing, but then there's a bunch of midwives that work there. Sometimes the birthing center is attached to a hospital, sometimes it is a freestanding birthing center. And then you have the option of birthing at home and having a midwife come to you. And then you also have the option of birthing at home unassisted, which means that you assume the risk and you do all of the research and you prepare yourself to catch your baby by yourself. And these are all options that are open to you as long as you are having a normal, low risk pregnancy. And you should explore your options. And a lot of people think that, oh, my insurance is going to cover my hospital birth, so that's going to be the cheapest route for me. But they don't take into account things like their co-insurance and deductible. So then by the time they've paid those things for their insurance, on top of paying their insurance premium, which I guess you won't really be able to avoid that. But anyways, on top, by the time you pay your co-insurance, your deductible, and you get close to your out-of-pocket maximums, you end up paying very close to what it would have cost, if not more than what it would have cost to birth a baby at home. I've heard of people in the Cincinnati area, that's where I live, in Cincinnati. I've heard of people paying as much as $17,000 with insurance to have a baby in the hospital. And I've heard people paying about $5,000 to have a home birth. So they're going to make people try to make it seem like it's cheaper because that is just the societal norm. But once you do your research, you find out there are actually options for you. The fourth thing I wish I had known is that you have to advocate for yourself. So, while you may have providers and a birthing team, nobody can know you what your desires are and your wishes are like you. And you are entitled to your desires and your wishes as it pertains to your birthing experience. So what that means is if you have a OB or a doctor that you are seeing, You have the right to ask questions along the way. You have the right to ask for more time to think about things. You have the right to delay procedures. You have the right to deny procedures. You have the right to deny testing. You have the right to make suggestions as to now. There are going to be some, like certain things, especially if you're delivering in a hospital, that are going to be within their parameters, but you have the right to at least ask and to expect a decent response back. So if you ask, can I have essential oils during my C-section, for example, and they say, no, you cannot. Well, why can't I? That it's your right to know why you cannot. And if they can't tell you why not, it's your right to ask them to dig a little bit more, and to give you an answer that feels satisfactory to you. Your birthing experience matters. And you should be the one with the reins, not necessarily your provider. A lot of times, we tend to take a back seat to our health care, and especially during pregnancy, especially if you are a Black woman in America, this is not the time to do that. This is not the time to take the back seat, because the statistics are already stacked so far against us. So it's just to remember that you are the one that's in control. You have the right to ask questions until you fully feel comfortable with whatever decision it is that you have to make. And you always, always, always have the right to request more time. And if it is an emergency, you're going to know it's an emergency, because they will not be asking you questions at this point. Instead, they will be rushing you, because during an emergency, your life is at risk and there's no time for questions. So if questions are being asked, there typically is time to think about the answer. And that is how I'm going to say that. And for the fifth thing that I wish I had known when I was pregnant or before getting pregnant, is that it is very, very, very important to pick your birth team and pick a solid birth team. And so this doesn't just include your provider, but this includes every single person that you are going to have at your birth, attending your birth. So, first, obviously, it is the medical professional. Are you going to have it be an OB, a certified nurse midwife in a hospital, a certified practicing midwife? I don't know what the P stands for. A CPM, who does a home birth a home birth. Or are you going to not have a medical provider, and are you going to do this unassisted? And that is your decision. The next person that you might want to consider is your partner. So is your partner going to be involved? I recommend highly, yes, involve your partner, but everybody has different dynamics, and that might not be the best for you, and it might not be something that you desire, and that is up to you. The next person would be obviously any relatives that you might want. Do you want relatives? Do you want your mother there? Do you want your mother-in-law there? Cousins, aunts? How many people do you actually want to be involved in this birth? And then, do you want to involve any additional support? So do you want to consider hiring a doula to act as a support person and to keep everybody in line? So that would be keeping your relatives supported. That would be keeping your partner supported, and then of course keeping you 100% supported. Yeah, and so it's just really important to make sure that you are picking your birth team and you are creating the scene that you want for your birth ahead of time. That way, when it gets down the line, you aren't scrambling to try to figure out things while hormones are going, while adrenaline is going. Maybe it was never discussed that your partner was not going to be there, but your partner being there is going to give you is going to make the situation worse, and is going to make the labor not progress. Maybe you didn't discuss that you don't want your mom there, or maybe you didn't discuss that you don't want the children there. Whatever it is, it's just really important to make sure that you are actively planning every step of your birth team, every piece of your birth team. Okay, so that is where we are going to end it for today. If you are interested in booking a doula consultation with me and adding me to your birth team, you can visit my website at www.divinemotions.com, and that's DIVINEMOCEANS.com. And you can email me at omayinka@divinemotions.com. And as always, you can also find me on all of the social medias at Divine Motions. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you get alerts when we put out new episodes. As always, may peace and bliss flow through you effortlessly. Much love, fam.